The Night King never gives a speech, no threats, no bargains, no final warning. And somehow, he still feels like the most powerful ruler in the entire series. Because every other leader in Game of Thrones has to win the room with words, promises, fear, loyalty, theater. He doesn't. He walks in and the room goes quiet. Not because he's mysterious, because the living can feel the truth of him. Once he's on the board, the rules change. Here's what's easy to miss about the Night King. People talk about him like he's just a monster with an army, but the show doesn't frame him like a monster. It frames him like a king. Not a king who rules by love, not a king who rules by speeches, a king who rules by certainty. And in a story where everyone is constantly selling power, Tywin with reputation, Cersei with fear, Daenerys with destiny, the Night King is the only monarch who never has to persuade anyone of anything. He doesn't convince, he just arrives. That's why his silence hits the way it does. Silence isn't the absence of personality, it's the absence of negotiation. Think about how power usually works in Westeros. Someone makes a claim, someone challenges it, the room splits, deals get made. Everyone argues about legitimacy while the real game happens underneath. Even the ruthless rulers still have to manage the human layer: pride, loyalty, betrayal, reputation. The Night King steps around all of that. You can't flatter him, you can't bargain with him, you can't shame him, you can't threaten what he loves. That's the first reason his silence reads like dominance, because it tells you immediately nothing you say matters. And the show proves that with the way it uses him in key moments. At Hardhome, when the living are barely escaping, he doesn't chase Jon like a villain trying to win the scene. He stops, calm, and looks across the chaos like he already owns it. Then he raises his arms and the dead rise. No speech, no warning. Just a single move that flips escape into "we're outnumbered again." That's the thing about him. He doesn't need to threaten. He demonstrates. Now here's where Mind of a Monarch actually gets interesting, because the Night King's power isn't only the army, it's what he does to the living psychologically. He forces them into a reactive posture. Every human leader in this story survives by creating choices. Pick me or pick them. Do it and live. Don't and suffer.
Dracarys.
The Night King removes choices. It makes everything feel like a countdown. And when people feel like they have no choices, they start making desperate moves. They overextend, they misread, they gamble. He doesn't have to manipulate them with words. The shape of the threat does it for him. That's why his silence feels so heavy. Silence isn't him refusing to speak, it's him refusing to give you the comfort of a conversation. Because conversations create the illusion that outcomes are flexible. With him, the only question is how much you lose before the outcome arrives. Now watch the one moment where he speaks in the only language he uses: decision. That spear throw. No yell, no celebration, no victory lap there. Just an irreversible move that tells the realm new rules. And that's why he feels like a monarch. Monarchs decide outcomes. Everyone else debates them. His silence is the space where outcomes happen. Then we get to Winterfell, the part where a lot of viewers say, why does he walk in like that? Why does he come personally? But if you've been watching how he rules, it tracks. Because kings don't send someone else to collect the crown. When it's time to end the game, the king steps forward and he walks to the godwood the same way he walks into every scene, calm, controlled, like the room has already been decided. His army isn't there to win a battle. It's there to keep everyone pinned, exhausted, and out of position. The army is pressure. The Night King is the finish. And again, no words. He doesn't need them. The silence is part of the effect. It tells you the same thing his presence always tells you. There is no negotiation, only the end. So here's the real takeaway for Thrones and Ladders, and it's why this Silent King angle works. Every ruler in this story, even the strongest ones, can be moved by something human. Ego, fear, love, pride, legacy. That's leverage. That's the game. The Night King doesn't give you leverage. He doesn't react, he doesn't bargain, he doesn't explain, he doesn't reassure you with language, which means the living spend most of the war doing what humans always do when they face something they can't reason with. They react, and reacting is always slower than deciding. So if his silence is what makes him feel inevitable, it also hints at the only way a silent king can ever be beaten. Not by debate, not by shame, not even negotiation. Only by one clean move that doesn't ask him to respond, because he never responds. So it comes down to this. Was the Night King's silence his greatest weapon, or did it make him beatable because it left him with only one way to play the end? What's your take on this? Drop it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you're curious for more, click the video on your screen to watch the next breakdown now. This is Thrones and Ladders. Every climb has a cost, and in the Game of Thrones, power always collects.